I don't know about you, but every once in a while, General Hospital throws so many surprises at us that I have to sit back, shake my head, and say, well, I'll be. Looking at what's coming over these next 2 weeks, I honestly feel like the writers decided nobody deserves a quiet summer. Every time I think one family is finally catching a break, another secret comes crashing through the front door. That's exactly why I've stayed hooked on this show for so many years. Just when I think I've figured things out, it reminds me that in Port Charles, certainty doesn't last very long. The first thing that caught my attention was Carly refusing to stop fighting for her daughter. Now that's something I understand. A parent can argue with their child all day long, but when danger comes knocking, that protective instinct takes over faster than anything else. Carly pushing Z to remove Jocelyn from the WSB feels completely natural to me. I can't even blame her for trying. The problem is that wanting to protect someone and actually being able to protect them are two very different things. It already sounds like Carly is about to learn that lesson the hard way, and I've seen enough of this family to know disappointment usually comes with an even bigger surprise hiding right behind it. Then there's Lulu finding out that Charlotte knew Valentine had been hiding at Carly's house. Lord have mercy, that kind of confession isn't something a mother can simply brush aside. I always think the hardest lies aren't the ones told by enemies. They're the ones that stay inside a family, quietly growing heavier every single day until someone finally can't carry them anymore. I can only imagine everything running through Lulu's mind after hearing that truth. Trust is fragile enough in Port Charles, and once it starts cracking, it rarely breaks in just one place. I also can't ignore Jason and Valentine getting closer to freedom because of the deal Jocelyn made with Z. On paper, it sounds like a victory, but General Hospital has taught me something over the years. Nothing comes free. Every bargain leaves somebody paying the bill sooner or later. Meanwhile, Danny trying to drag Rocco into helping Jason escape sounds exactly like the kind of impulsive decision young people make when their hearts move faster than their heads. I remember being that age, believing good intentions were enough to solve impossible problems. Experience has a funny way of teaching us otherwise. The situation surrounding Willow honestly feels even messier. Watching Tracy confront her is one thing, but seeing Brooke Lynn quietly push Willow into becoming the prime suspect in Jordan's hit-and-run investigation makes my stomach turn. I have to admit, I don't care how desperate someone becomes. Letting another person carry the blame for your own mistake is a dangerous game. It may work for a little while, but secrets have a habit of growing legs in Port Charles. Before long, they come walking right back to the people who created them. That's why I keep thinking Brooke Lynn may have convinced herself she's in control when she's actually building the very nightmare she's trying to avoid. Harrison Chase doesn't strike me as someone who jumps to conclusions either. If Willow insists she's being framed, I have a feeling Chase will listen before he judges. That's one thing I've always appreciated about him. In a town where almost everybody expects betrayal, having someone willing to hear the whole story feels surprisingly rare. The biggest twist for me, though, has to be Britt. I nearly stopped in my tracks when I started putting all these pieces together. Lucas knows about the saline in Britt's syringe, and now the possibility that her Huntington's diagnosis was built on a lie changes everything. If those new tests prove Britt never had Huntington's at all, then we're not just talking about a medical mistake. We're talking about years of fear, heartbreak, impossible choices, and emotional suffering that never should have happened. I don't think people realize how life-changing that kind of revelation can be until they imagine carrying around a death sentence that wasn't even real. If Britt hears that she's actually healthy, I don't think joy will be the first emotion she feels. Honestly, I think shock will hit before relief ever has the chance. I'd probably sit there wondering how many decisions I made because I believed my future had already been stolen. That's the kind of truth that doesn't simply change tomorrow. It forces someone to rethink yesterday too. The more I sat with these spoilers, the more I realized that General Hospital isn't just setting up another week of courtroom drama. It's asking some hard questions about pride, sacrifice, and just how much a person is willing to give up to protect the people they care about. That's why Curtis's situation keeps sticking with me. I've lived long enough to know that life doesn't always reward honesty the way we'd like it to. Sometimes you can do your best, make what feels like the right decisions, and still find yourself standing in front of two doors that both lead somewhere painful. Curtis has spent all this time trying to think several steps ahead, putting together a legal strategy that might give him a chance to survive this nightmare. But every plan seems to fall apart almost as quickly as it's built. At one point, it looked like Isaiah Gannon could end up carrying the blame for leaving the accident scene, and I have to admit, I wondered whether that direction would actually hold. Now, with suspicion surrounding Willow growing stronger by the day, the entire picture is changing once again. That's what I always find fascinating about Port Charles. Nobody's problems stay isolated. One lie collides with another lie. One investigation uncovers another secret. Before long, people who weren't even connected at the beginning suddenly find themselves trapped inside the same storm. It's like watching dominoes fall. Once the first one tips over, there isn't much stopping the rest. The possibility of Curtis receiving a plea deal really caught my attention, because that's not a simple decision anyone can make overnight. Sure, on the surface, a plea bargain sounds practical. Accept a smaller punishment, spend a little time behind bars at Pentonville, and eventually get your life back. But when you stop and think about it, that isn't just a legal agreement. That's asking someone to admit defeat, even if only partially. I kept asking myself what I would do if I were standing in Curtis's shoes. Would I accept a short prison sentence just to put the nightmare behind me? Or would I take my chances before a jury, hoping justice finally wins, even though the risk of spending years in prison hangs over my head? Lord have mercy. That's the kind of decision that keeps a person awake all night. There isn't an easy answer because every choice costs something. What makes the situation even more complicated is that Curtis has people depending on him. Decisions like these don't affect only one person. They ripple through entire families. Every hour spent behind bars becomes an hour away from loved ones. Every gamble taken inside a courtroom becomes another emotional burden carried by the people waiting outside. That's something television sometimes forgets to show, but General Hospital's usually done a pretty good job reminding us that consequences don't stop with one character. Brooke Lynn's involvement makes me even more interested because I think she's standing at the edge of a cliff without fully realizing it. She's encouraging Gio while secretly carrying the enormous weight of framing Willow. That's an exhausting way to live. No matter how carefully someone hides the truth, eventually they start looking over their shoulder every minute of every day. Fear becomes its own prison long before any courtroom gets involved. I honestly don't believe Brooke Lynn can keep this secret buried much longer. Every new investigation increases the chances that someone notices one tiny inconsistency, one forgotten detail, one unexpected witness, one piece of evidence that refuses to stay hidden. That's usually how these stories unfold in Port Charles. The truth rarely explodes all at once. Instead, it slowly pushes its way to the surface until nobody can ignore it anymore. Then we come to Portia, whose life is about to change forever. Going into labor after an intense confrontation sounds emotionally exhausting, and I can already imagine the tension surrounding those scenes. Whether she was arguing with Curtis, Jordan, or someone else entirely, that emotional stress isn't something you simply switch off. Becoming a parent is already overwhelming under normal circumstances. Adding conflict and uncertainty into the mix only makes the moment more unforgettable. What I've learned from watching General Hospital over all these years is that babies often arrive during the worst possible timing, but somehow they also become symbols of hope. Just when relationships seem beyond repair, just when families appear completely broken, a new life enters the picture and reminds everyone there's still something worth protecting. I wouldn't be surprised if Portia's delivery becomes one of those emotional turning points that changes several storylines instead of just one. When I step back and look at everything happening over these 2 weeks, I honestly can't remember the last time so many storylines felt this connected. Every secret seems ready to collide with another. Every difficult decision threatens to reshape someone's future. Every reunion carries emotional baggage, while every fresh beginning comes wrapped in uncertainty. That's exactly the kind of storytelling that has kept me coming back year after year. I'll tell you one thing. If even half of these spoilers play out the way they're being teased, Port Charles is about to become a place where nobody sleeps easy. And if history has taught me anything, it's that whenever General Hospital starts stacking this many emotional dominoes together, the final one always falls in a way nobody saw coming.